Every time a patient walks into a hospital, there's a 1 in 20 chance that they'll get an infection. And of these, 100,000 will die every year. Hi, my name is Martin De La Presa, and this is Mitch Bartnek and Nate Rhodes, and we're the founders of Veritas Medical. We developed an innovative solution to take on one of healthcare's biggest problems today. And those are infections, and we call our solution the light line catheter. We've assembled a team with the know-how and experience to make this succeed. With our student partners, or student members, we have over 20 years of industry and research experience with biomedical and electrical engineering, student doctors and MBAs. We also have a great team advisor with extensive experience with medical device startups. We've also assembled a panel of industry experts with microbiology experience and intellectual property law, as well as medical devices. So our story starts with our friend Jeff. Jeff, when he was 25 years old, he got chronic kidney failure, and he had to use a catheter as part of his medical treatment. And from this, he got an infection that nearly took his life. It was at this time that we decided this should never happen again. Not to him, not to anybody else out there. Because he's a 1 in a million type of guy. In fact, he's a 1 in 1.5 million. 1.5 million is the number of infections that occur in US hospitals every year. And of these, 100,000 will die. This has gotten so large in part due to the high rise of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And this now has become more complicated when recently the Center for Medicare and Medicaid announced they no longer reimburse hospitals for costs that incur when patients get infections in their care. And just last year, the CDC released a report demonstrating that the economic burden of these infections is up to $30 billion a year. Now, this $30 billion, that's in addition to the $25 billion that hospitals spend on catheters in the first place. So, in speaking with our stakeholders, we were able to identify 4 key areas where we can use our technology to treat these infections. These are venous catheters that are put into the blood to deliver medicine, also urinary catheters that go into the bladder, endotracheal tubes to assist with breathing, and also surgical sites. However, we'll be focusing initially on the venous and urinary markets, as these have the greatest pain point. Urinary tract infections, 900,000 every year from these urinary catheters. And the cost to treat one venous infection, the bloodstream infections, $56,000. Now, both of these markets combined, they make up 70 million catheters are sold every year. And this is the market that we're targeting first. And so we wanted to know, who are the industry leaders? What are they doing? Why isn't it working? And what we found is that there's several key leaders out there, namely BART and Teleflex, and their strategy is to acquire companies once they see it's something that they like, instead of spending lots of money on research and development throughout the year. And so there's 2 main things that they're doing, and they're based on contact with bacteria. These are silver impregnated catheters, and they put antibiotics within the catheter themselves. Doesn't work for 2 reasons. 1, it doesn't address the high rise of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. 2, it doesn't do anything to overcome the biofilms that form on the catheters that bacteria form when they get infections. And so when they take this to look at how effective they are in clinical studies, they have low efficacy, and neither of them address long-term sterilization. One thing that has been shown to work is when hospitals started hiring more nurses, increasing their hours, changing more dressings, ordering more lab tests. And while they did see a decrease in infections, their costs remained the same. They were essentially throwing money at the problem, and this is not a long-term solution.
So as Martin said, we've been able to see that the methods being used by these catheters aren't decreasing infections at all. And so we decided to ask ourselves, how could we address this problem? And the first things that came to mind was using ultraviolet radiation and also using heat, because these are what's used in the operating rooms to sterilize some of their equipment. Now, heat obviously isn't a viable sterilization source within the body for obvious reasons, but ultraviolet light, that was a potential solution. However, after some research, we realized that while it does kill bacteria, it also kills human cells. So this was not an option. So in the course of our research, we quickly found, we came across some new technology that they were applying in medicine that used visible wavelength light to kill bacteria and that didn't harm human cells at all. And one of these applications was in dermatology. They were using lasers to zap acne. Many of you may have seen this. And so this was what we used to build the Lightline catheter. And so this is an animation of our device, and it is quite simply a light generator that passes this sterilizing light through a fiber optic network embedded within the catheter itself. This is an image of one of our first proof of concepts. And this sterilizing light, it sterilizes the entire catheter from tip to tip, inside and out, while it's residing within the patient. So this is something that hasn't ever been done before. And so after we designed this catheter, the first thing we needed to do was protect the intellectual property. And we did this by filing a utility patent 2 years ago. And the main claims of this patent are A, the use of any visible wavelength light passed through a tube in a body cavity. The second main claim is how we transduce the light, including the fiber optic network that we were just talking about. And it's important to note that all this IP is owned 100% by Veritas Medical, and the University of Utah doesn't own any of it. So we quickly saw as we were designing it that we have this light that can kill bacteria while not harming human cells. Obviously there are a lot of applications. In order to secure some footholds in these markets, we have filed 2 new provisional patents for an endotracheal tube that will reduce ventilator-associated pneumonia, as well as a wound bandage that will decrease the rate of surgical site infections. We also have 3 additional continuation in part patents that are in final draft form that will further expand the market of that first patent that we filed 2 years ago. So in order to get through the FDA clearance, we needed to show 2 things. A, that it works, and B, that it's safe. And so in order to do this, we've ran some laboratory tests, and we did this on bacteria, the most common causes of hospital-acquired infections. And we found that and it's important to note that the bacteria that we tested here was actually antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So they were already resistant strains to the drugs that we're trying to use to treat them. And we found that we could kill 99.9999% of these bacteria, which is 100% more potent than it needs to be in order to get an antimicrobial claim from the FDA. So we know that our technology works. In addition, we need to show that it's safe. We have just completed our cytotoxicity and hemocompatibility studies to confirm what we've seen in the literature, that it's safe to use. And we've seen exactly that. It's safe to use on endothelial cells, and we have no problem using it in the blood. So we know that it's safe. Our next step is to get, we have an IACUC-approved research study in large animals that will start next month, and this is fully funded. And this will just show how our device operates in a living system with a plan to move to clinical trials next month. So how do we stack up to the competition? Well, our product differs, it's way more effective than anything else out there on the market, and this is for 3 main reasons. Our product is the only one that offers continuous, long-term, active sterilization of the catheter while it's residing in the patient's body. 2, the bacteria are not able to develop a resistance to this light technology. So as opposed to just throwing more antibiotics at it, they can't resist our light technology. And the final thing is our light can penetrate biofilm. So if the biofilm forms on the catheter, it still will penetrate the biofilm and kill the bacteria up to a couple of millimeters.
So how do you market a medical device? We're going to start by working with key opinion leaders in hospitals to perform and publish clinical trials. Now, these clinical trials are going to go through a peer review application to academic journals, and it gives us a huge amount of credibility in the medical community when we approach our customers with these actual results. We're going to also go to industry conferences and trade shows, put our device into the hands of doctors and nurses who are actually going to be using it, and let them see just how easy it is to use, how great it can actually work, and they're going to help market it for us. They're going to be the ones going to their hospital purchasing committees, and in turn, the hospital purchasing committees are our actual customers. So, interesting fact about the medical community, the doctors and nurses and patients, while they will use it, they're not actually paying for it. It is these committees that we have to convince that our catheter, our device is what they want. We're going to use specialized national distributors in order to get our device out very quickly and broad distribution, and eventually vertically integrate into hiring a small sales force. And finally, our exit strategy is going to be a 2-part. We want to work with licensing agreements in OEM with the market leaders, but eventually look at acquisition. So we've divided our financial planning into 3 different stages. The first one we've completed at the end of last year, and we were able to raise over $110,000 in free, non-dilutive money. So this free money came from grants and competitions. We were able to put this money towards building and finishing our minimum viable product and showing that it works and that we can build it cost effectively. Right now, we're focusing on getting through the FDA. So that's why we're here. We're seeking to raise $1.5 million in 2 different tranches in order to get through the FDA. And after we're done with that, our third and final phase will be actually going into market. So to kind of break down these the tranches for what we're looking for right now into 2 different ones, the first one is really to de-risk everything. We want to make sure that our intellectual property is secured, that our manufacturing and tooling, everything is set up ready to go, and that we can begin the FDA process. After that, we want to use the other half of the tranche to really get through the FDA and begin initial sales before we open that next round, the B round of funding. So many of you are here from Houston area. You're very familiar, Houston Methodist Hospital. It's one of the best nationally ranked hospitals, that network, in the country, and they see a ton of patients. So up here you can see almost 300,000 patients every year that come to their ERs. We've been working with the biggest hospital network in the Intermountain region, and that's Intermountain Healthcare. They see almost 500,000 patients, to give you an idea. So these are huge. This is a huge hospital network, and Intermountain Healthcare loves our idea. They not only love it so much, they're helping put their money where their mouth is. As Mitch mentioned earlier, we're doing an animal study later next month, and Intermountain is actually paying for that animal study. As we go to clinical trials, they've asked if they could be the first one to do clinical trials with us. And I have here a letter of intent from the Vice President of Patient Safety from Intermountain Healthcare, who loves our idea so much that they've asked if they could be our first customers. So we are so excited to work with this group and other groups in order to get our device to the market, because they are desperately seeking a solution. So as you look at our financial numbers, I want you to keep in mind that this partnership with Intermountain, when it goes through, our financial projections would actually double. So by 2019, we're expecting to have about a $37 million gross revenue, and that translates to about 350,000 catheters, 350,000 units sold. This is about 0.25% of the entire 70 million catheter market. So again, very, very conservative numbers. We're not trying to give you something that you don't actually believe. So we looked at a lot of proxy companies, ones that were competing in similar technologies with single devices. Rochester Medical was one that we found was pretty closely approximated. They made a silver urinary catheter that they were able to have gross revenue of about $60 million. In 2013, they were acquired by the market leader, Bard, for about 4.25x exit multiplier on their gross revenue. And we found that other proxy companies, other pure play companies, range between about 4 and 7x in an exit multiplier. So all of our exit valuations are based on that. The medical device market is a huge, huge market. In 2008, many of you probably invested in the housing market or in other markets that crashed with the recession. The cool thing about the medical device market, it increased, it had a gross increase by 8.22%. So a medical device market is a recession-proof market. Our technology, we're not just looking at catheters. We want to sterilize and solve the problem for all hospital-acquired infections, so we can branch and scale into different markets. And we believe that within 5 years that we'll have a $120 million valuation, which gives a great return for our A and B round investors. So we've received excellent validation from experts in business and innovation and medicine. Last year, we won the Collegiate Inventors Competition, which housed about 2,000 businesses that we won the competition. In November of last year, we went to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, where they host a competition, the Collegiate Inventors Competition, and we ended up winning that based on our intellectual property strategy. And earlier this year, we won a grant from the National Science Foundation I-Corps program. So we're very excited at moving our technology forward and getting validation from these big sources. So in summary, there is a huge pain point in the medical device field. $30 billion is spent. And that's in addition to the $25 billion that the customers are paying for this. We have the technology. It's a disruptive technology, and it has a first-to-market advantage to actually stop this. And we have the team and capabilities to do this. And most importantly, we have a customer that is begging us to finish this and get it to market to save their patients. We can stop these infections and save billions of dollars and millions of lives, but we need your help today to save patients just like Jeff. Jeff nearly died from his infection, and we never want to see that happen to anyone else ever again. So join with us in making the Lightline catheter shine the way to a brighter future. Thank you.